Okay, I want you to close your eyes for a second. Imagine you are standing right in the middle of Las Vegas.
Okay.
But I want you to erase the sphere, delete the Bellagio fountains, turn off every single neon light.
That is a very dark image.
Right, what you are left with is just dust, silence, and a temperature that is pushing 110 degrees in the shade. You look around for a luxury resort, and all you see is this tent city on the edge of town.
Yeah, not exactly the strip.
And here is the kicker. If you try to buy a cold beer just to handle that heat, you might get thrown in jail. Or worse, you could go blind from drinking industrial chemicals.
Yeah, it sounds a lot less like a vacation and, well, more like a hardcore survival situation, which honestly for a historian is exactly when things get interesting.
That is exactly where we are going today. We are doing a deep dive into a text that it completely flips the script on how we look at history.
Oh, absolutely.
It's called Las Vegas Revealed, 1931-1932 by Derek Fitzgerald. And the hook that grabbed me immediately is that this isn't some dry history textbook.
No, not at all.
It is written as a literal survival guide for a time traveler who has just crash-landed in the early 30s.
It's such a clever framing device, right? Fitzgerald takes these incredibly rigorous historical records.
Like the Las Vegas Age newspaper.
Exactly, the Las Vegas Age, city council minutes, police logs. But he presents all of this through the eyes of a fictional case study. He follows this character named Will Patterson from the Retrosome book series to show us exactly how a modern person would, quite frankly, die if they weren't careful.
And die is not an exaggeration here. The very first thing I learned from this guide is that 1931 Vegas is a complete death trap.
Yeah, it really is.
It's this tiny, dusty boomtown of maybe 6,000 or 7,000 people, caught in this weird limbo between the desperate poverty of the Great Depression and the absolute chaos of the Boulder Dam project starting up nearby.
It really is the Wild West taking its final breath before becoming this global capital of entertainment. But if you land there without a plan, you aren't seeing Sinatra. You're seeing dirt roads and very desperate people.
So let's play this out for you, the listener. You've stepped through the portal. You are in 1931. The guide says your biggest problem isn't where to stay or what to eat. It's your own body.
Temporal sickness.
Yes. This concept really freaked me out.
It makes a lot of sense, though, doesn't it? You're physically displacing time and space. The guy describes it as this violent biological rejection.
Like motion sickness on steroids.
Way worse. You're looking at severe nausea, intense vertigo, blinding headaches. The protocol isn't go find a poker game. It's find a dark hole and hide.
Right.
You need 48 hours of absolute rest just to stop the room from spinning.
Which is pretty hard to do when you don't have a hotel reservation. But even before you crawl into that hole, the guide emphasizes securing the return.
Yes, crucial.
This part felt very tactical. You can't just, drop a pin on Google Maps.
Right, because the satellites aren't up there yet. And the landscape itself is highly volatile. The desert shifts constantly.
A sandstorm can bury a landmark in 6 hours.
Exactly. The guide suggests physical markers, piling stones into a cairn, or digging a trench in a specific geometric pattern. Will Patterson, the character in the case study, he actually used his smartphone camera to triangulate the horizon line.
Which is super smart, assuming the battery holds out. But the idea that you could survive the trip, survive the 30s, and then get stuck there forever because a sand dune moved 5 feet to the left, that is terrifying.
It raises the stakes immediately for you. You aren't a tourist. You are a castaway. And once you secure that exit, you have to deal with the immediate environment. We really have to talk about the heat, because I don't think modern listeners truly grasp what no air conditioning means in the Mojave Desert.
Oh, the guide is brutal on this point. It points out the Apache Hotel opened in March 1932. And it was literal headline news because it had an air-conditioned lobby.
Just the lobby.
Not the rooms, just the lobby. That was a rare luxury.
For everyone else, you're relying on swamp coolers. And if you've never used one of those, they are basically just boxes that blow air over wet pads.
Which sounds nice in theory.
They work okay in dry heat, but the moment the humidity creeps up...
Which happens during monsoon season.
Right. They just blow hot, wet air into a hot, wet room. It's completely suffocating.
And then, just to make it even more fun, the winter of 1931 was apparently freezing.
Record lows. And the housing was essentially shacks with zero insulation. So you're risking heat stroke in July and hypothermia in December.
This brings us to the section of the handbook that I think is the most critical: health and hygiene. We are so spoiled today. If I get a scratch, I slap a Band-Aid on it.
In 1931, that scratch is a potential death sentence.
Exactly.
We're talking about the pre-antibiotic era. Penicillin exists in a lab somewhere, but it is definitely not at the corner drugstore.
Right. Wouldn't be widely available until the 40s.
The guide lists common killers: pneumonia, strep throat, infected cuts. The character Will Patterson actually gets pneumonia in December of 31. In the narrative, he only survives because he smuggled a personal supply of antibiotics and antiseptics from the future.
That was a huge aha moment for me. The guide basically says, do not travel without your own personal pharmacy, but then you run into the problem of the packaging.
Right, you can't just leave a plastic tube of Neosporin on the sink in your room. Commercial plastic didn't exist like that yet.
It would look like magic.
A modern pill bottle with a child-proof cap looks like alien technology. The guide strongly advises transferring everything into plain glass vials or unmarked tin containers. If a maid finds a plastic bottle with a laser-printed text, you are going to have a lot of explaining to do.
Okay, so you've survived the arrival, you've got your glass vial of amoxicillin, and you've recovered from the dizziness. Now you need a base of operations. The guide gives us a few accommodation options, and they all have very different vibes.
It really depends on your cover story. If you want to be invisible, which is the highly recommended strategy, you go where Will Patterson went, the Gateway Hotel.
That seemed like the most sensible choice. It's quiet, secure, and crucially, it's attached to a 24-hour cafe.
Which is brilliant because it allows you to eat at odd hours without drawing attention. Now, if you want to play the wealthy eccentric, you go to the Apache Hotel. That's where the high society and celebrities hung out. But if you're feeling dangerous, there is the Meadows Resort.
The Meadows sounds fascinating. It's located east of town, and it's run by bootleggers, right?
The Cornero brothers. It was totally isolated. It was the most luxurious spot in the area, very exclusive, but it was also a massive target. The guide mentions it was damaged by fire in September 1931, so if you book a room there, you might wake up to the smell of smoke.
And for the budget traveler, there's the Colorado Auto Court.
The precursor to the modern motel. Individual cabins. It offers the most privacy because there are no shared hallways, but you're also a bit more exposed to the elements.
Let's pivot to food, because this is where the glamour of the past really falls apart. The Depression-era diet section of the guide was distinct.
That's a very polite way to put it. Home cooking was austere.
2 words, water pie.
Ah, yes. The culinary masterpiece of the Great Depression, along with cornmeal mush.
I honestly thought it was a joke when I read it. You take water, flour, sugar, and you bake it.
And vinegar. Don't forget the vinegar pie variant. The acidity is supposed to trick your tongue into thinking it's lemon. It's a starvation meal. The guide is very clear here. In desperate times, locals were eating roadkill. Squirrels, gophers, whatever they could catch.
Which is exactly why the guide pushes you toward eating out at the cafes. Because of the dam workers, Vegas had this weirdly robust 24-hour diner culture.
It really did. You had thousands of men working around the clock shifts at the dam site. They needed to eat at 3 a.m. So you have places like the White Spot Cafe, which was apparently famous for its burgers and had this great retro diner feel.
Or the Oasis Cafe.
Right, a confectionery and bakery right next to the Majestic Theater. Or the Gateway Cafe.
Yeah.
If you have the cash, you can eat steak and eggs at 3 a.m. while the rest of the country is eating cornmeal mush.
But to buy that steak, you need money.
Yeah.
And this is the part of the guide that blew my mind. Modern cash is utterly useless. The economics of time travel aren't just about exchange rates, they're about weight.
This is a logistical nightmare that movies always ignore. Buying vintage currency in the future is incredibly expensive, so you need a strategy to earn money in the past. But you can't use paper money easily. Large bills draw massive suspicion, so you are using coins. Buffalo nickels, mercury dimes, and silver piece dollars.
And silver is heavy.
Incredibly heavy. The guide breaks down the math. If you win $1,000 in 1931, you are carrying nearly 60 pounds of metal. You can't just slip that into your pocket.
You need a reinforced bag or a wheelbarrow.
Exactly. But to actually get that money, the guide explicitly recommends the sports almanac strategy.
Yes, using future knowledge of sports outcomes to place bets for income.
It's the most efficient way to get capital without taking a job from a local who desperately needs it. The guide lists some very notable bets to memorize.
I love the historical details here. That 1931 World Series.
St. Louis Cardinals beat the Philadelphia Athletics in 7 games. That's a lock.
And the horse racing.
20 grand wins the 1931 Kentucky Derby, and Burger King wins in 1932. But the big one, the one the guide really focuses on, is Farlap.
The legendary horse.
Farlap wins the Agua Caliente Handicap in March 1932. It was a massive race. But here is the tragic historical detail. He dies mysteriously just 16 days later. So you have this very narrow window to place the bet, collect the winnings, and get out before the tragedy hits.
It's such a specific, actionable tip. But of course you have to manage this data somehow. You can't just pull up Wikipedia on your phone. In fact, the guide is paranoid about technology management.
With very good reason. Imagine you are sitting in a dusty saloon in 1931, and you pull out a glowing screen or a modern ringtone goes off. That is incomprehensible to them. You aren't just weird, you are dangerous. You could face accusations of sorcery or being a spy.
So how do you power anything? Even if you keep it hidden, batteries die.
Power requires step-down converters because the voltage back then was completely unstable. You'll fry your devices. The guide suggests solar chargers, but even that is risky because laying them out draws unwanted attention.
So you have to keep your betting stats in a physical notebook.
Using shorthand or code, that's the rule. Because if digital devices fail or get stolen and someone reads Farlap wins Agua Caliente in plain English before the race happens, you're in trouble.
We have to address the main reason people think of Vegas.
Yeah.
Vice. The guide makes an important distinction about the birth of Sin City that I think most people miss. We think of Vegas as a place where everything goes. But in 1931, it was actually a weird legal paradox.
It's the year the big shift happens, March 19th, 1931. The state of Nevada re-legalizes gambling. But we have to look at the context. This wasn't a master plan to create a glamorous resort destination. This was a desperate attempt to save the economy.
They re-legalized it because they had nothing else left.
Exactly. The first license went to the Northern Club, run by Mamie Stalker.
But it wasn't glamorous yet.
Not at all.
Yeah.
We were talking sawdust floors, smoke-filled rooms, simple card tables. The Big Four Club and the Boulder Club were other key spots on Fremont Street.
So gambling is legal. You can walk in and play roulette. But you can't order a drink.
Right. We are still in Prohibition. The dry reality. Alcohol is still federally illegal.
Unless you are on Block 16.
North First Street. The red light district. This was the only place liquor was openly served in gin mills, but it was highly dangerous, prone to raids. And they served bathtub gin that could literally cause blindness or poisoning.
The traveler warning here is severe. Do not get arrested.
Police corruption was high, due process was loose, and having modern items confiscated in a raid would be catastrophic.
However, there was one spot the guide highlights that sounds genuinely amazing: the Desert Inn nightclub.
A very specific, unique venue. It was Black-owned, served Southern food like ham and BBQ, and played real jazz and blues. The guide notes it as a rare space where the segregation laws of the time were relaxed, allowing Black and white patrons to mingle.
Speaking of mingling, let's talk about blending in. You can't just walk around in your everyday modern clothes.
The look is strict. Men must be clean-shaven. Stubble implies you're low class. You need suits and hats.
And for women.
Modest dresses and gloves. Sloppy dress implies poor character back then.
And social manners are just as rigid. Formal introductions are required.
Men walk curbside to protect women from mud and traffic. Table manners are key. You fold napkins in half. You don't bite bread rolls, you break them. You stand when a lady enters the room.
I really enjoyed the slang section, the code to blending in.
Oh, the slang is great, using terms like absolutely or giggle water for alcohol.
Telling someone they are all wet if they're wrong, or calling a tough guy hard-boiled.
And attaboy. But you have to avoid modern casual phrases like, hey, what's up?
Right, which leads us to the heavier side of the book, the psychological and ethical challenges. The guide doesn't shy away from the culture shock.
No, and this is where it gets difficult. The stark reality of segregation and racism under Jim Crow, the casual sexism and rigid gender roles.
The guide tells you that you must observe, not interfere, which has to be emotionally difficult.
It is. And then there's the danger of emotional attachment, falling in love or making close friends. The narrative warns us about Will Patterson, who stayed much longer than intended because of the connections he made.
And there is the ethical dilemma. Is using future knowledge to bet a form of soft colonialism? Are you exploiting a struggling economy?
It's a very real question the guide poses.
So, say the pressure gets to be too much. The guide offers excursions beyond Vegas.
Boulder City is one option, a government town for dam workers, utilitarian, hot, and constantly under construction.
Or you hop the Union Pacific train to Los Angeles.
The vibe there is Golden Age Hollywood. You could visit the Ambassador and its Coconut Grove nightclub, or the Biltmore with its speakeasy in the Palm Room.
But security is an issue.
Pickpockets were rampant at train stations. Travelers must guard their gear aggressively. Losing your modern tech there would strand you.
It really circles back to the summary of the book. 1931 Vegas is a place of high risk and high reward. It requires immense discipline, period-appropriate manners, and a really good antibiotic kit.
Exactly.
Fitzgerald leaves us with a final reflection on the time traveler's ultimate responsibility: to witness history without breaking it, and to survive the Wild West days of a city just learning to be a global capital.
It's a fascinating perspective on history.
So I want to leave you with this thought to mull over. If you went back, knowing what you know, having the ultimate cheat code to wealth and power, would you truly have the discipline to stay hidden? Or would the human desire to interfere and change the world override your instinct to survive?
A very dangerous temptation.
Something to explore on your own. Thanks for taking this deep dive into the source material with us.
Good luck out there.